I'm Dario Talmesio, Senior Analyst for Informa Telecoms and Media, covering mobile operator strategies in European markets. A level of, if you want to call it, discrimination is going to be introduced at the customer level. And this is typically a tariff that would make use of quality of service. So giving priority to certain customers who are prepared to pay a premium price for a privileged access to the network. That could be a reserved bandwidth or could be most likely a priority on the usage of the network. The first example that comes to mind is in Vodafone network in Spain. They use a tariff that's called Gold Quality. But certain operators have decided just to introduce QoS-based usage without putting a tariff next to it. And some customers will just receive a better experience than others. But not all customers, in some operators' view, not all customers need to know that, which is more of an holistic point of view. They think that a high-end user doesn't really need to make a deliberate choice of spending more and having a better experience. They are already spending more than others, so they give to them a better experience. In the longer term, what we say is that every time there is an option to offload traffic to a cheaper network, or at least to a network that can provide a better experience at a lower cost, it should be exploited. Every time I connect to the internet with my handset in a place where there is an existing fixed line connection, Wi-Fi, or an Ethernet connection or anything, and I don't use it, it's a missed opportunity for a mobile operator to save on cost. I think they have improved. I think what we said from the very start of the mobile internet, the mobile broadband, was that yes, it is fair to implement discrimination of customers as long as you communicate it correctly. The first probably options of fair usage policies or usage abroad which were not communicated extremely well at the very first stage of mobile broadband did cause a lot of image issues to mobile operators and ultimately to the entire mobile industry. But probably that is something that needed to happen in order to get to the point where we are today. Today I think operators, and we know probably the first one in the UK was O2, they have started communicating in a very clear way how much a customer is paying and what for, and what is the data allowance, and how much they are going to pay when they exceed the data allowance. And they're also making sure that they do so in a very gentle way. So most of them apply a 3-strike rule. So the first time you exceed, you won't pay. The second time you receive an SMS, and so on and so forth, until you either change your data allowance or your behavior. In most cases, it's easier to change the data allowance and spend a little bit more than changing your usage behavior. So that, I think, that is a very fair way of doing it. And it's based on quantity, which is very easy for customers to understand. Or not for everybody, it's very easy, but it's easier to understand than compared to implementing QoS-based strategies, for instance. customers, not only the early adopters, but the mass market or the majority of the mass market will understand what a megabyte is and what a gigabyte is in the same way they understand how much electricity they use when they are at home, or in the same way you understand how many minutes you spend on the phone. Obviously, this transition will take time, but I believe that a clear, simple, effective communication in terms of data usage will help customers to make their own decisions. 3 years ago, there were a lot of discussions around sending party pay, and today there are services around sending party pay. Obviously, the service or the brand that we all recognize as sending party pay is the Amazon Kindle. They had a discrete success in the US. We see it now being sold in Europe. Of course, they bring simplicity to the customer around their service, and this is obviously something that customers value. They buy a service, they don't buy different services around and on top of the services a data connection. So simplifying the customer experience is always something good in terms of service adoption. We've recently finalized some of our forecasts for data usage. We see that next year, for instance, a dongle user, meaning a user of a large screen mobile device, would use on average around about 1.5 gigabyte per month, which is quite a lot. That compares to a much lower usage of a handset user, all handsets across the board, which is around about 100 meg per month, which is not excessive. In those statistics, obviously, we need to take into consideration the fact that the data users are not only iPhone users. Especially next year, what we call the democratization of smartphones will bring down to an affordable level the ownership and the usage of smartphones, and those no longer early adopters in the market, we are talking about the mass market adoption for next year, will have a usage profile which is considerably different compared to what we see today.